Wow. Hi, welcome to A Punk with Toys, and this is the new Thursday show, Thursday with a friend. This week, I'm going to start off with a bang, and that is Allison Troy. Hi, it is nice to finally actually meet you, but I guess this is how we meet people nowadays, not in person, just over the internet.
Yeah, that's true. Technically, we met before on one of Oz's streams, though,
Oh yeah, we did, didn't we?
really briefly. But yeah, no,
That was
thanks
the
for having me.
infinite. That was the infamous shit show.
Literally, literally. Really quick before we get started, my lawyer has advised me I should read the following statement. The views expressed by Allison Troy in no way reflect the views of A Punk with Toys. And for the record, any statements about Moby, Lena Dunham, or the Mormon Tabernacle Boys Choir, 1982, are to be considered rumor and not true.
I have a feeling this is how it's going to go. I have a feeling that my first show is going to be her taking over, but that's fine.
I would
Oh,
not.
I saw you on Toy Habits, and you, and not in a bad way, you command the room when you do stuff. So it was a very endearing quality because I see some shows where no one takes control, and then you have other ones where too many people try and take control. So anyway, I quickly want to go over what this is going to be about. And I'm going to try not to talk too much. I realize I talk way too much. The whole point of this bi-weekly show is to give back to you guys who have supported me by reaching in and getting to know somebody that's in my community that helps out, whether it be on Instagram or YouTube, anything like that. I know not everyone can be there during the lives, but I know like when I'm on Geek Dead Life or Toy Anxiety or any other stream like that, you chat with people and you always want to know about them. And that's really what I want to do is kind of give back, and especially the people that don't always have content out there. So I'm not going to be looking to pick up just grab YouTubers that are creating content or people in the industry. This is just a way to get to know people. And Allison is already.
Well, you said in the industry, and it's like every time somebody says that, I think like, oh, are you in steel? But anyway.
Well, the toy industry, I guess you could say. So again, like I said, we all see, the guys that are, that were either building toys or designing toys in the past. They're doing it now, and people want to have them on, and that's great. But I want to know about people that are actually helping support me and grow this community. So,
I shouldn't talk about that I got hired at Ramen Toys today.
What?
I shouldn't talk about how I got hired at Ramen Toys today.
No, hey, if you're in the industry, then that's awesome. No. I don't have a problem with that. But I'm not going out looking to get Ace, who's never been in the chat. And again, he makes his rounds when he has something to sell. And he makes his rounds.
He does. Well, I mean, that's the way you do, especially, like that's how you do it. You have to make your rounds, like get out there and promote yourself.
And you know what? And that's what I say about, when I talk about it in the chat, and I'm like, listen, do not come on my show or anyone's show for that matter and promote your show, because that's not what anyone's here for. If I get to know you well enough, I'm going to promote your show. If you want to have me on or I want to have you on, then we'll talk about it. But and it doesn't matter what form it is. My daughter's big into Funko Pops. We go to the Funko Pop store. I believe it's every Thursday he does a live stream. He's like, you have no idea how many people I've had to boot because they're in there trying to promote their own thing. And he's like, no one is here for your stuff. And it sounds kind of rude because I know there's a lot of people that do it. This guy right here, Matthew, can tell you how many times he's heard me bitch about someone going on the full force and just sending a super chat to talk about their live stream, and it drives me nuts. Totally mad. So anyway, same rules apply as the Monday Night Toy Rambling show. Matthew Matson is the moderator, so what he says goes. We're not looking to start trouble. I don't want drama, no politics, nothing like that. This is just going to be a nice little chat to get to know Allison, and then we'll send her aside, and in 2 weeks we'll look at someone else. But let's quickly start with everyone that's in the chat. Andrew Davis, no, I am not going to Joe Fest, and I also will not be going to what was the other one? PowerCon. I'm going to Disney, take my kids to the Disney in July. So Action Figs, it is nice to see you. Allison, what is your count on the Batman since we have started 7 minutes ago?
According to my note, we are 17 Batmans have been released, 3 Jokers, and 1 Batgirl, but technically it is Batman pretending to be Batgirl, so it's still Batman.
Ted Darklaw from Hella Dope Toys. This is a perfect example. Listen, if you are trying to support a smaller company that is doing toys, check them out. They are legit. You can talk to numerous people that are in here right now. We already saw Matthew Matson. Thank you for being here. PNC. And then Brick something. Nice to see you. Allison Trizzo is the best. And we got Viper Scout, Digital Diarrhea, who has seriously one of the greatest names on the internet. Anthony Romo. Anthony actually, even though I had actually planned to ask you to be on the show first, he mentioned you before he even heard me. Jay Bartlett, check out his channel. He's streaming all the time. That guy streams all the time, but the one that I watch mostly is the one on Friday nights because that's when I'm available with him in articulated chat. I don't care what anyone says. He's articulated chat. All right? He's articulated chat. Supersonic, he's Jeremy Kimberlin. All right? And DJ Phoebish. Okay, guys. Let's just get into this. 24 people, hit that like button. Push this out. First show. Hopefully we can have a good show, and going into the next one, it will go good. So I just want to get with like what your age bracket is. You don't have to give me your age. I know, especially with women, do not like to tell their age, which I never understood.
Well, it's because society as a whole tends to throw women away when they hit like 37. If it didn't happen at 20, I mean, like if you hit 27 and you're old, you can see this in movies. Like all of a sudden you're 27, you have like 17 kids, and you're the mom. And sometimes you make it to 37, and then you're just old. You're like playing grandmas. So it's just a society thing. When people start getting better about not being shitty that way, I can say shitty, right?
Yeah. I don't want to free for all like some other places.
Yeah, no, I won't drop any F-bombs.
Fuck that. You could. We don't want no real shit. All right.
Yeah, right. Yeah, no, not that kind. Not the kind that has peanuts and corn the day after.
Some of you know what we're talking about. Others don't, and the ones that don't, you should be thankful.
You don't want to know. Right? There are just some things you don't need to know in life, like anything Lena Dunham has been in. But what was I saying? I forget.
No idea. Oh, something about the age.
Yeah, the age thing. So anyway, like it's just weird. But I am old enough, like I was telling you, or like I say all the time, because like as if this is a badge of honor. I've seen every Star Wars movie ever 7 times in a theater. In the first 2 or 3 times, they didn't say A New Hope or even Episode 4. It just was yellow letters. And I was among the kids who sent away a little certificate to get early bird figures. So
I can only remember seeing Return of the Jedi in theaters, and I saw it 7 times 6 times with my cousin that I do work with. I remember he saw it 8 times. He doesn't even remember. And I don't know why it just rang true that we had seen it 7 times together. I mean, 6 times together. I had seen it once on my own, and he had seen it one more time than I had in the theater back then.
Yeah.
And he's like a year younger than me. So yeah, that's when your parents would drop you off at the movie theater when you were 7 or 8. And
well, not for. I mean, I was too little at that point for them to do that. The first movie my parents dropped me off and just left was The Goonies.
I've
So
never seen the Goonies. I
I saw
know.
The Goonies 7 times.
You ever,
That was
yeah.
an epic number when I was a kid. You go see everything that you like 7 times. Well, and it was especially during summer vacation because you were like home and there was nothing to do, and
But
we
movies were in the theater for 10 to 12 months.
got that
They
too.
weren't like, if you don't see it in the first 4 weeks, you're not going to see it like they are today. So
I remember when that shift happened. Like I was in the 90s. Like I remember my day off at Blockbuster, I would go to the movies, and it's like if something was little tiny independent movie that you like made it to one of our theaters, like it might not last more than 2 weeks, and like the last week would just be like, like 11:35 a.m. Tuesday would be the only time you could see it, but it still would be there 2 or 3 weeks. I sort of hate this. I think that's why like some movies bomb that shouldn't. Is like they come and they if it doesn't hit big the first week or two, it's just gone.
well, I mean, in this day and age, too. I mean, I still like going to the movie theater. That is one thing that I really do enjoy going to the movie theater, seeing things. Where like sports, I'd rather sit at home. I hate the
Uh,
crowds. I hate going and watching. I used to be a huge wrestling fan. God rest the Iron Sheik. Um,
I heard it passed. Or,
yeah, and we used to go to all the wrestling events. I was at WrestleMania 3.
yeah,
That one is different, but as you got older, like you go to these events and you don't realize how quiet it is. The only thing that you hear is them hitting, the ring and stuff. There's no announcing. There's nothing that you hear. And to me, it just that's part of the fun of watching wrestling was when you would hear the commentators and what they say. But you'd go to these events and it's like there's really nothing going on.
right.
Like
I
so.
Yeah, I was never. I mean, I like to watch. What was it? The Glamorous Ladies of Wrestling on
Hello.
Saturday. Yeah, I watched.
Have you watched it on Netflix?
I
Unfortunately,
I I loved that. I thought it was really good. I'm a big Allison Brie fan, though. I think she is underrated. Um, but yeah, that. But that was it for wrestling. I mean, I knew who they were from the Cyndi Lauper videos because I really liked her. But otherwise, wrestling was just soap operas for boys. So not my thing.
you know what? I've said that for years. That professional wrestling, the WWF, it was a man. Everyone said it's a man's soap opera.
Yeah. And
But
I mean, it's fine. I mean, it's just the concept of the continuing story. Everybody likes a good continuing story. But it's just, I think I technically started saying it because like my dad would complain about soap operas because me and my mom would watch those, especially during the summer. All My Children, One Life to Live, General Hospital, and Loving when it was still on. Um, but my dad would complain, but then he and my brother would watch wrestling. And it's like, but it's the same thing, except nobody has come back from the dead looking completely different because it's a new actor. And none of the kids age like 20 years overnight. So,
believe me,
but
if they could bring wrestlers back from the dead, man, you'd have a whole all-star lineup. Uh,
well,
so
yeah.
yeah,
So
so getting into whereabouts did you grow up? Just I think right now you live over.
I am in the Pacific Northwest these
Okay.
days, up here with all these Yankees who think it's okay to put tomato in their gumbo. Thanks, Emerald. Anyway, if you put tomatoes in gumbo, people, it's not gumbo, it's fancy spaghetti sauce. So anyway, as you can tell, I grew up in coastal Louisiana. My dad worked in the oil field during sort of the 80s, the heyday of it. Um, and then I later, after college, moved. Well, I quit college, but I moved to Texas Austin, because that was closer to my dad's family, and my grandfather was old and had emphysema and was dying. And I just needed to get out of Louisiana. It was a bad scene. Um, and then I ended up in the Pacific Northwest. So yeah, grew up in a really small town on the Gulf, like literally. Um, I mean, people say like when the crow flies, but we didn't really have crows so much as we had like blackbirds, because crows are big, but we had a lot of blackbirds. But the way the seagulls flew whenever they came to steal food from the blackbirds, we were like maybe a mile from the beach. But you know, when you have canals and alligators and stuff, you stick to the road. So technically 3 miles from a beach. But I grew up there. We used to have to evacuate for hurricanes. The reason I don't still have the USS Flag that my brother and I shared as kids was because what was it? Hurricane Rita. Yeah, Hurricane Rita. Pretty much wiped out the part of Louisiana I'm from, so that was just all gone.
Yeah,
a lot of that.
We are going to discuss some of that because I heard when you were on Toy Habits all the stuff that you and your brother had, which
we were so spoiled. Like,
yeah,
but let's overcompensated though. So
yeah, so okay, so obviously you grew up there. Now, a lot of the stuff that I know you collect is considered, you know, boys' toys. Obviously,
yeah.
you have a brother, and I used to have a lot of, you know, like I had friends, like family friends that were girls, and they'd come over. They loved playing He-Man. Some like playing GI Joe, and there was always some guy who on the playground, he always was willing to be Wonder Woman because you needed Wonder Woman. And it was kind of like no one ever thought anything about it. And I can't even remember. I remember there was one guy that always wanted to be. You never really thought too much about it because it was just someone needed to be Wonder Woman. And he just always seemed to be cool to be Wonder Woman. But tell me about like this massive amount of
everything
play sets that you had, because when you were talking about it on what were you on, what?
Oh gosh, one of them.
It was on Toy Habits.
Yeah.
And you just kept rambling off playset after playset, and I'm just like,
it's more likely we didn't have, like, there's a shorter list of what we didn't have than what we did have. Like, I can easily, like, we didn't have the Dungeons and Dragons palette, the Fang Cavern or whatever. I always wanted that, never got that. Never got the, what is it? Is it the Terradrome for Cobra, or is it the Terradome?
Terradrome.
Yeah, we didn't have that. We didn't have the big eyeball. Well, I wasn't collecting toys when Turtles came out, but my brother was, but he didn't get the big eyeball thing. That year he was into karate. So he ended up getting like one of those dummies that you could like sort of punch and beat up. He got out of toys a little bit younger than I did.
Now, is he older or younger than you?
He's younger. He's like 6 years younger than I am. So, yeah. So yeah, he was born well. Well, and like all of my memories are tied to toys, which is how you know I'm supposed to be. I was born to be a collector. When he was born, though, we were living in Texas, and Temple, Texas, if anyone's familiar with the area. And at the time, the hospital he was born at was across like the highway from a mall. And like back in the 80s, it took a lot longer to have a baby, and like my mom was there for like 2 days. And she also had a long birth. She, like, for whatever reason, my mom couldn't like push us out quickly. I mean, she was like, her water for me, like her water broke on like, I can't even remember like what day. I should know this, but whatever. But it broke on one day, and it took like 36 hours before she actually had me. They had to do all kinds of stuff because that's a long time for the water to be broken without the baby coming.
If my daughter could still be in my ex,
Yeah.
she would be there at 14 and a half.
And then
She had no intention of coming.
but I mean, it was the 70s, and as awesome as they were, also there's just not as much incentive to be born in the 70s as as there is, like, say, in the 80s. But so maybe I was just trying to hold out for a better year. But yeah, he was when we were waiting, we went over across the street to Temple Mall, and it was like it was April, because he was born in April. But they had just gotten all the Empire Strikes Back figures, and the movie wasn't out yet. Disney, and there was like Bespin Leia, Bespin Han. Who else did they? Like all of that first wave of Empire figures they had. But so I got Princess Leia Bespin, and then I didn't care that my brother was being born because I had a new Star Wars figure. And it was Princess Leia, and she was red, which was my favorite color, with a pink cape, which was my other favorite color. And I picked that over getting like they had just released. Well, I don't know if they just. It was the first time I had seen like the Wave 2 Strawberry Shortcake doll. So they also had Raspberry Tart and lemon meringue and apricot, and I went with Bespin Leia because she was cooler. So. Yeah, so sort of toys have just always been like my earliest. I loved the movie Peter Pan, but all my mom could find as far as toys were like color forms. I don't know if anyone remembers those, but we had a lot of color forms, but they were perfect. They were like a little play set, and they had the sticky thing. So it was like Peter Pan. Like she tried to get me all those little people things. I liked the little people. She got me like the house and like all the little things, and then there were the Weebles that wobble, but they don't.
Remember the Weebles?
She got me the haunted house for like Christmas, I think, or maybe I mean, I would have been tiny, so who knows? Like, I just know that was part of my childhood, and it was before Star Wars. So I had stuff like that, like the typical 70s toys. I had some sort of Sesame Street playset. I also, for whatever reason, went through a phase where I really liked Hot Wheel cars if they were shiny. So I had a bunch of Hot Wheels that were like metallic colors. And then we went and saw Star Wars, and of course everybody was all about it. But just from like the first moment, Princess Leia was just like, I had the Charlie's Angels dolls from Hasbro also.
Going back to your Hot Wheels, that is the first actual world building. I mean, you could just build a whole city just with cars, and then I remember going over I had two different play sets that they collapsed, and they were basically a carrying case, and you had a bunch of cars in it. I take it to my grandmother's house, and then there'd always be like little ones, and she'd buy little ones, so I'd have some over there. That's like your first real world building.
Yeah.
And there's no people; it's all imagination. So
yeah, well, I mean,
racing and smashing cars.
I used them as because there was like a Corvette or something, and I'm pretty sure my Charlie's Angels memory is a little hazy, but it seems like it was the same car that
the Charlie's Angel van.
Not the van. They had like it wasn't technically Charlie's Angels, but it looked like Sabrina Duncan's car. And Sabrina like Kate Jackson was my favorite because she was sassy. She had that like mushroom haircut, which we all loved in the 70s. If you didn't have dirty blonde hair like Farrah Fawcett. So my mom always said it, that dirty blonde Farrah Fawcett. But yeah, I love. So a lot of the Hot Wheels I had were because they were Charlie. I used them to play Charlie's Angels because they always had those car chases. So like, I hated Barbie though; she was stupid.
So Brick something brings up. Did you have Adventure People? Now I can't speak for you. I had the one that I remember were the two people in the yellow swimsuit and the boat, and I played with that boat with G.I. Joe for a long time because unlike most of the other G.I. Joe boats, it actually floated for it.
Right.
An amount of time. And if I remember correctly, I think it had wheels on the bottom too, so you could push it. And those were 5 points of articulation. A matter of fact, I recently saw something. I don't remember what it was. It was another 5 points of articulation. It must have been a reaction, but the stance was almost the exact same as the guy because he had like this bent arm, and then he had like one straight arm. So he was supposed to be like swimming. So I know
So
I had some. Did you
I
have
just,
any
I
adventure
just,
people?
I did. I just Googled it to make sure they were adventure people and not some knockoff. And of course, the internet is. So I had three, and the thing is I don't know quite when I got them, so I can't. I don't know if it was before or after Star Wars. Because after Star Wars, like I would get, because one, they didn't come out right away. Obviously, there was that whole year. But also, it's not like now where like a wave of like 400 figures would come out throughout the year. It was like there were 21 until Empire. And then everyone got, for 1978, everyone got those 12 figures. I only got 10. My mom couldn't find Obi-Wan Kenobi or Chewbacca. But I had adventure people. I'm looking at, and I had the race car driver that was in all white with the orange
Okay.
helmet. And that was actually X-Wing fighter pilot Princess Leia. So she would, because why would you send Luke to stop the Death Star? You have to send Princess Leia. So it was her. I'm sure the little Evil Knievel figure appreciated that he was now Princess Leia. And we had the deep sea guy, with that like weird helmet, and that was Darth Vader's brother. And then I had like the little kid who I didn't play with because children aren't for me. So but my mom,
they're not always for me either, and I have two.
and they a couple times tried to give me baby dolls, and that did not go well.
So,
Like I
so
would,
you were into what you would consider boys' toys well before your brother. Your brother obviously was not
yeah,
the influence.
well, and it wasn't. I mean, like, yeah, technically boys' toys, but like, yeah, I also had Mego. I never had the Mego Wonder Woman. I always wanted her, and like, they can never. So it's like I got Batman, a couple of different. Well, they don't have Wonder Woman. Here's Batman. Which is
Batman was just
probably why
released.
Todd McFarlane keeps. I mean, we're up to like 28 announced Batmans at this point. But I mean, like, so I wanted Mego and like the Wonder Woman doll I wanted, but we were a little bit, like my parents were young and poor. My dad. I mean, like, back then things were a little bit. My parents were technically 2.5 years apart, but the way their birthdays fell, it looks a little off. So when I was born when my mom was 15 and my dad was 18.
Holy crap!
Yeah, I mean they met. She was 12, he was 14, and she lied about her age and told him she was 14. Um, so they dated for a while, and then all of her friends lied as well. Gotta miss that would have been like 1970-ish. So yeah, and then he joined the army. It was during Vietnam, and she was convinced that if he left, she would never see him again. Probably because he was a child and she was a child, and he would have gone to Germany and met like an adult and fallen in love with an adult, and she would have still been in school. So my mom dropped out and basically ran away. Didn't tell anyone where she was until basically like, because back then your parents could sign paperwork that said it's okay if our child gets married.
Are there names Jack and Diane? Because
No.
it almost sounds like Jack and Diane.
My mom did not eat chili dogs, so definitely not. Like they were too fattening.
Do people outside of Michigan eat chili dogs?
Oh yeah,
That is a Michigan thing.
No,
The
chili
Coney
dogs
dog.
are universal. I mean, they're American universal. I don't know what other countries do about. I mean, I feel bad for countries that don't have chili dogs because they are magic. But yeah, no, I mean, like it could have been like she would always say, "Oh, it's like us," and I'd be like, "Yeah, without the dysfunction, mom." Um, I mean, I love my mom, bless her heart, and God rest her soul. She is no longer with us, but she's a mess. So yeah. Um, but so that's why they got married. So I had really young parents. So they kind of, you know, they weren't as on top of things as some parents would have been. They were, because they were kids themselves, and
Yeah.
they were from that generation like that remembered Woodstock, but they weren't old enough to have been to Woodstock. So, and and my mom's dad was a drill sergeant. And my grandmother, who is also, and my grandmother is my mom and my grandmother are the reason I'm a collector, because they both were. My grandmother would often, when I would go spend summers with them in Louisiana, we would go to go to all the five and dime stores, and I would get all kinds of, I would come home with, it didn't matter if I already had R2D2, she would just buy me another one. Because you should get something at every store.
Yeah,
We later found out that my grandmother was, I mean, technically bipolar, but we didn't call it that back then. So, like there were issues, but she was a great grandma, not a great mom, according to my aunt. But all I have to say about my aunt is if you remove the A and replace it with the C, you could also describe my aunt. So, yeah. But yeah, so I had young parents, and I was like the first grandchild, so everyone just spoiled me, and like a lot of it would be, I would say I want the Mego Wonder Woman, and they'd be like, "We found Mego Batman," which just wasn't quite the same. The 12-inch doll though was, by Mego, like that was everywhere, but that was like $10, which was like back, like I remember my mother complaining. Like she could buy a bag of groceries for $15 to feed all of us back then. So yeah, I didn't have, before 1980, when my dad got his degree from college in computer science, which he ended up not using because computers in this day and age, it's like, I remember he'd bring his homework home and it'd be like all these boxes with little cards in it that like punch cards. And that was his program. And now it's all like in a box. But yeah, so they were really young. And it was what I liked, and they were I was also more mature than they were even at that age. So it's like they didn't really argue with me a lot. They took me out, and they were also used to their parents sort of discounting them. So like that was one thing they wanted to do differently with us, was like we often were sort of given the agency that you might give an adult rather than a kid. Which isn't always very, like that created some issues for me later in life. But, because especially when I went to school and teachers would just be like, well, like you need to address me as this and treat me with respect. And I would just be like, well, my parents say that I don't have to respect you until you've earned it. So anyway, Karen.
Man.
I would call them. She would be like, "My name is Mrs. This," and I'm like, "Okay, Karen. That's weird. Stop being weird, Karen." Because my first two teachers were Karens, so it's like it was almost destined to be a thing.
So okay, so now going into these playsets, that you got to tell everyone how these playsets, like, because when you went on, like I was.
Oh, okay. Well, I can definitely, like, I will. Yeah, because it's impressive. Like we were the kids that people would come to our house and try to steal our shit. But my parents were also kind of gangster, so like those poor kids. Anyway, so yeah, my first outside of like the like little people house, which later became the Millennium Falcon, because we did not get a Millennium Falcon until Return of the Jedi. But my first real playset was Death Star. I got that for my birthday.
Quickly, my buddy had the Death Star, and I didn't know that it was a Death Star, because by the time I could go play with him,
yeah,
we would use the trash compactor. I did not know that it was a Death Star, because obviously it didn't look like one.
Right.
And I don't know why I had never seen it. I had Star Wars stuff, but once G.I. Joe came out, Star Wars meant absolutely nothing to me.
Yeah, but the Death Star is actually one of the few things that Kenner didn't make for the entire length of the line.
Let's
Yeah,
say hi to
Kenner.
Matt O'Brien.
Yeah,
Nice
they
to see you
like.
drop in.
Oh,
A lot of people have dropped in. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you to everyone who's joining for this first episode. Again, a little bit different. If you're expecting me to come in and be talking HasLab and all that other stuff, we're doing something different, and it seems like you guys are engaging. I'm not trying to not read all your comments, but
no, I'm like, oh yeah, there are comments. And if I have not even looked at. Oh wow.
there's a good amount of comments. Like so but it's obviously it is
Okay,
people
cool.
are listening to you, so
Well, good. That's what's supposed to happen. People listen. Anyway, so yeah, Death Star. Well, it's yeah, but again, Kenner didn't make the Death Star for the. You could get all of the original 21 figures for the entire length of the toy line.
yep.
When they canceled it during Power of the Force, they were in the process of re-releasing everything. But the Death Star wasn't. So it's like if you didn't, I mean, I don't really remember seeing it in the
Yep.
stores often outside of like my birthday. I mean, because I saw it and I'm like, look, there it is. That's what I want for my birthday. And I know my parents were like, fuck, because it was like $20. Again, spoiled because my dad would have still been in college, working nights at 7-Eleven, and bringing me home X-Men and Supergirl and Wonder Woman comics that had the covers stripped. Because that's how they did comic books back then. If you didn't sell them, you just cut the covers off and then mailed the covers back to your distributor, and then you kept the books. But you couldn't sell them without a cover. So a lot of my entire, which I don't have, thank you, Hurricane Rita, but my entire X-Men Dark Phoenix saga was coverless whenever the hurricanes hit, because that was my first comic.
Wait, go back to that about the comics.
Yeah, back when they were on, like, say, the newsstand.
Yeah,
because comic shops are different beasts. But when they
yes.
were on the, like, if they like say, remember when you could buy comic books at the grocery store?
Well, so I sold my comics most of my comics last
Yeah.
year, and I found it so interesting when I was going through different books that the comics that were sold in Rite Aid, or would be Perry Drug back then, Arbor
Yeah.
Drugs, whatever, 7-Eleven, those ones are normally worth more because the cover was different, but they weren't bagged. Those ones are almost all long gone. That's where all my G.I. Joes came from.
Yeah.
So they're so beat up. But seeing that there's a difference was shocking to me.
Yeah.
So you're saying they would they cut the cover.
Yeah. Yeah, because like nobody wanted to pay to have, like if you have a stack of comics like this that you didn't sell, you're supposed to send them back to the publisher.
Oh, okay.
Publisher doesn't want to have to pay for that. The vendor doesn't want to have to pay for that. If you have bought all of those comics, you don't want to, and you have them left over, but there's no way to get them back. You're just going to leave them on the shelf, and then people come in for the latest copy of whatever it is they want, and you still have the 6-month-old comic there. People stop buying the comic. So that you would cut the cover off and then you would mail the covers back. That's still, I think, done pretty much with magazines. And when I worked at Blockbuster and they were like, let's sell magazines, we'll make lots of money. I was like, we won't. It's not going to happen.
This isn't a PNC scene. You had to tear the covers off magazines and books. That is, yep. I never knew this. So
yeah, that's why when you go to used bookshops, they'll often have a notice saying we do not buy anything without a cover, because technically they can get in trouble because that in theory is they're supposed to destroy it afterwards, which of course nobody does because like when Blockbuster was like, we're going to sell John Grisham and make a ton of money. And I was like, you mean like those magazines that aren't going anywhere? Okay, Scott. The CEO of Blockbuster at the time was Scott something or other. His son-in-law was the owner of the store I worked at. So we would often have to try shit out that they were convinced. But every time I'm like, this Netflix thing is going to take off. They're like, we don't think so. It's like, sure, Scott. But yeah, like they tried to sell John Grisham, and it's like nobody's gonna pay cover price at Blockbuster for John Grisham when you can go to Walmart or use your Walden Books, R.I.P. Walden Books, or go to Borders or whoever, and yeah, but you would strip the cover off and then mail the covers back, and then you just have. So I read a lot of coverless John Grishams, and then I would leave it like in restaurants and hope somebody would enjoy John Grisham.
All right, so
I would read them and be afterwards like, why do I read these again? They're terrible. Anyway.
all right, so the playset, you got to explain to everyone all these.
So yeah, Death Star playset, because every spoiled child of the 70s had that, no matter what your economic background was.
I did not.
And every child who was loved by their parent. No, just kidding.
That's
I'm not
true.
going to go full Ryan Dole on anybody. Anyway, yeah, so Death Star playset, I got that for my birthday. The next 1970, yeah, that would have been 79. Yeah, it would have been 79 because they didn't get figures until the middle of 78. So yeah, 1979. Then the next year, all the Empire toys started hitting. The Imperial Attack Base, I had that. What else? I didn't, there weren't any Strawberry Shortcake. Like there was the gazebo. I had the gazebo. So that was like 1980. And then, and that 1980 was the year we moved to Louisiana, so my dad could go to work in the oil field. Once he realized his computer degree wasn't going to be quite the moneymaker. If only you had waited a few years, Dad. But yeah, anyway, so but then we moved to Louisiana, and like I had the Droid Factory playset with all the little bits where you can build like an
wow, I
RPG.
forgot.
I had the Land of the Jaw, like every Star Wars playset for the first movie I had. I had all of the playsets for Empire except the cardboard Cloud City, and that was a Sears exclusive. I've got a reproduction of that now. Thanks, Cardboard Galaxy. Not that he's watching. But yeah, I've got one of those. I didn't have the Cantina Adventure playset. They came with Blue Snaggletooth. Again, Sears exclusive. I think both of my grandmothers had some issue or beef with Sears because they never had. It was always Montgomery Ward's catalog.
I love Monkey Wars. I miss that place.
Right. I got a lot of toys at Montgomery Ward's. They had a great Star Wars section also, and Strawberry Shortcake, and it was all side by side, so I could just go to the one aisle. It's the only place we found Black Star figures. Not my brother had some of those. I didn't. They never had the girl, so I mean that was a little bit of it with the boys' toys. Now that I just thought of like it tended to be the lines that had a girl figure. Like I didn't have any sectars. My brother had all of those. And the big Hive playset, which I stole and made the bottom of Crystal Castle. But yeah, if there was a girl action figure, then I would buy in. Because then there was something for me to do.
That's actually
Otherwise,
that is very interesting.
you know, so it's like when Todd McFarlane says stuff like, oh, girl action figures, it's like, I think if you approached it the right way, like you could broaden the demographic. You know, it's like She-Ra was only in the girls section, which is fine. You know, but that is pretty much. I got a lot of the glamour gals. I don't know who remembers those little Kenner action figures that were dolls, but those are also more action oriented. Like you could get a Corvette. I did not have the big Love Boat yacht they made for that, sadly. I almost got one on eBay in like 1999 for like $20, and then some bitch walked in the end and outbid me. Back in the days where that countdown like would sometimes stall and you couldn't get in there. Fucking bitch. Anyway, I hope she's dead now.
Wow.
Her and the playset that I desired. Anyway, so yeah, I had glamour gals because again they were like action figures, I did have what was it, Darcy? Again, it was Kenner, but she was like she had a disco phase where it was like she was a model and had disco, and some of her clothes fit my large size Leia doll, so it was like Leia needed friends. Um, but yeah, Death Star, every Star Wars playset for the first movie, everything for Empire except the cardboard Sears exclusives. And then that was when uh, I literally just brain farted on Masters of the Universe. Um, Castle Grayskull, of course. And Castle Grayskull hit right when my dad started making good money. So we had Castle Gray. Well, my brother technically got Castle Grayskull, but by that point I had Tila, and once I had Tila, like it was mine. Um, but yeah, so Castle Grayskull, and that again, that was the year he started making decent money. So that's when we started getting anything. But we had the Sectars playset. We had the Voltron Castle, which I use as Palace Alderaan. Let's see what else. I had the GI Joe, the like command center with the like jail cell in it.
Yep.
But it had a computer console and a bed, so I just turned that into Scarlett's house. Sometimes she would have to open people, and her bedroom was the place. So for me, a lot of these play sets were just sort of fancy doll houses. I did have the Strawberry Shortcake Berry Happy Home, which is epic. I'm trying to think. Of course, now that this is live and not like chat, like I can't
So
think of all of them. But I pretty much it's more unlikely that I didn't have it than.
but you talked about when you had the flag,
Yeah.
and
Oh
you
yeah.
talked about like what your dad had built so you could house all this stuff.
Yeah, like we
That's
had
what
like,
that's what I found interesting.
yeah, like well, it was the South, and we're technically under the water line, so he just in the backyard there was one of those little like temporary storage buildings, like a glorified trailer. So we had a glorified trailer for all of our extra toys, so that we saw because for a while we were in like two bedrooms, so it was like my brother and I had to, and that's another reason I think we shared a lot of toys was for a long time when we were kids we had to share a room. It wasn't until around puberty that suddenly it was like, oh, maybe like the kids need their own room. And it's true because I was locking him out of the bedroom all the time. And if he walked into the room, I would just start screaming at him to get out of the room. There was the time I like threw my boombox at him, but he interrupted me during Chaka Khan, so he had it coming. He was also deathly afraid of like mayonnaise, mustard, and ketchup for some reason.
Yeah, you
So
mentioned that too.
yeah, so I would chase him around the house, and there was the time I put it in front of all the doors so he couldn't come back in. Well, my parents were in town like an hour and a half away. So when they got back home, it was many hours later, and then they cleared it away and he came in. And he ate, then went to bed because he'd been in the yard crying all day because he couldn't come in. Childhood. And I told him last time I talked to him, like, so by the way, I told this story on the internet. And he was just like, whatever. And I'm like, you remember when that happened, right? He's like, yeah, I think. And I was like, ooh, he may not. He may have PTSD'd that into oblivion. So
Yeah, so let me. Matt O'Brien says, "Awesome. I know this is a different subject, but I'm curious to hear your thoughts. It seems to be Q&A issues from what I've seen." Yeah, so this is
yeah.
if you're just joining in right now, this is more or less. I want to talk to people in my community that have helped grow the channel, whether it be on Instagram or YouTube or even the Facebook group page. And believe it or not, there are other people that comment a lot on my stuff that aren't watching me live. I don't know why. But I want to give back to all those people and just get to know the other people in our community. So, or in this community, and not toy community. I don't want to say the punk community because that's really a whole different community that most of you probably don't want to have anything to do with. So yeah, Matt, it is a little different. But if you want all the toy talk, that will still be every Monday night at 9 p.m. So,
Well, I'll do a hot take. What was this question about toys?
what?
Let's do a quick hot take. Quick, we'll do a hot take toy moment. What was this question?
I don't think he had a question. He just
Oh,
seems to
something
be a
about
Q&A issues from what I've seen. Like,
oh,
and
oh,
maybe he was talking to someone above.
okay. All right. Well,
So,
never mind. Well, the
um,
hot take is apparently Hasbro's face paint is improving, but not quickly. Nobody liked Falcon. And in the time I just said that, we have 32 Batman total announced for the night. So there we go. Todd
well,
Oakland.
I don't know what you're sorry for. I just wanted to reiterate, like, because this is the first time I'm doing this show, so there's nothing to be sorry about, Matt. Like, I'm
I
sure
know.
there's a lot of people tuning in wondering, like, what the hell is going
What the
on
hell
about
is
you.
happening? Why are we
So,
talking about old toys?
yes, and Baldy says you have a killer sense of humor. She has, at sometimes, a very dry. Not say I'm gonna say dry sense of humor. A dry tone when she says it. When you hear her make a comment about her ex mother-in-law, I don't remember what you said, and I forget what show it was, but I just about lost it
It could
because
have been any toy. I mean, it was like probably toy anxiety where they showed a picture and I was just like, oh, it looks like my ex mother-in-law. Um, well, technically, my ex boyfriend's mother, because we were never really married.
hey, listen, hey, I have two kids, and we just had kids out of wedlock, and I was just a heathen, so I've been there.
Yeah, she would come and stay with us for 2 weeks every summer. And the last year we were together, though, and this is relevant to everything. The last year we broke up like in say November, but I didn't want it was up here in Oregon, and I didn't want to because I couldn't afford to fly home that year. So I was like, I do not want to spend Christmas alone. Technically, I would rather spend it with you than be by myself, which was an indictment on my own personality at the time. Because technically I would have been better company. But his mother sent his holiday presents because she doesn't technically doesn't celebrate anything, but she would for him. One of the presents she sent him was an 8x10 glossy glamour shot. You know, glamour shots at the mall.
Yes.
So she went and did one of those, and she sent her adult son 8x10 of her glamour shot, and it was one where she was all made up and was sort of leaning forward and like doing this thing with so that her cleavage and like it was low cut and there was a feather boa. It was not what you probably should send your kid. And then he decided, despite the fact that all of his other
You
shit was
kept
packed
that,
up,
right? You kept that in the breakup, I hope.
no, he made sure I didn't get to keep it. Well, you're about to find out why. So anyway, he decided, despite the fact all of his other shit was packed up, that that should go on top of our television stand. So that entire weekend, while we were watching Lord of the Rings, the extended version, all three of them, like those 14-hour,
Oh,
like
yes, you might still be there.
I, part of me will always be there. Like there's a part of me that died and like is frozen in time that it will always. And this was a different phase of my life where like was drinking about a box of wine a day, and it was the holidays, so I was celebrating with how should we say, like it was snowing in my life that weekend, and he put that picture up, and it was just like I've numbed myself with chemicals for a reason. I can make it through. So I went into and it was angled in a way so I could see it from the kitchen, but you couldn't see into the kitchen from the living room. And I dropped some pots and pans. And he'd go, and it's relevant to say that one of her eyes was slightly off kilter. And I was not the person I am now then. I was much more petty and superficial. I may have called her the queen of the side eye, but that's neither here nor there. I do apologize for anyone who has eye stuff for the person I am, but it will be worth it for this moment in 2003. Yeah. So anyway, I'm in the kitchen. I drop a bunch of shit, and I look up, and that bitch's picture is looking right at me. And he goes, "What's going on in there?" I was like, "I don't know. What did your mother see? She can see around corners with that thing, right?" And yeah, so he got mad, and the picture went away. I don't know where it went, and I now realize that yeah, I probably could have kept it if I had just kept my mouth shut. But he just had me
We
a long time.
we again, if you listen to me long enough, I will eventually offend someone or
Yeah,
offend all of you. We had
I
a good
will.
friend. We had
I
a
will.
good friend growing up, and his mom had a lazy eye, and we'd go to the and we should have done that.
See the dog.
Sorry, buddy. That's my
Yeah,
fault. You were laying down on the.
he just said it for me to, like I would never in this day and age ever.
Sorry,
I would be horrified.
hold on.
That
I
dog just
knocked on my table and he thought the door was knocking. All right, okay. So my son's gonna take out Roman. So anyway, back to my story. A friend of mine, his mom had a lazy eye, and we'd go knock on the door, and she'd open the door, and she'd be like, "Jay's not here," or whatever, and we'd always be like, "Which one of us is she looking at?"
no. Yeah, hers wasn't that bad. It was just slightly off, and like it hadn't technically, it wouldn't have bothered me if I were a better person back then. And if she hadn't been such a bitch.
I was
But
a better person back then.
yeah, I wasn't a great person back then. I can admit it. I have over the last 2 decades, I have improved as a person. I'm a lot less insecure. I was very insecure back then, so it was really easy to focus on somebody else's perceived flaws. And now I would just be like, well, instead of just going after his mother, I would just say, like, you're a piece of shit. Why don't you come in here and see what it is instead of asking from in there? But
Viper Scout, you are so right. Listen to anyone long enough, you should be offended unless they're boring as fuck.
right.
And you know what? Listen, I don't know why you guys listen to me for 3 hours. I thank you that you do, but one thing when I've asked Matthew certain things, I'm like, am I coming off boring? He's like, you are anything but boring. So, thank you, Andrew.
No, we like.
You want to say hi? Come here and say hi.
Okay.
Okay. Say hi. Look at that. All right. Hi, buddy. Hi. I'm sorry I woke you up.
He's like, that was
so
pounding.
All right, go lay down. Go lay down. Andrew just let you out. Go lay down. All right.
Oh, I just got an update. 39 Batman as of today, so we're good. We're up to 39 Batman for those counting in the chat.
And he can't wait to just do repaints of those too. So okay, so
right.
So obviously going in your teen years, did you continue to collect, or did you start to move on to other things?
I did not. I was how old? It was 8th grade. Whatever year that was.
Sounds about right.
And that my mother, like I would, we would, I was still buying stuff. Like KB was great that year because it's like I got some Raiders of the Lost Ark figures, like for $3 for $1, a bunch of Power of the Force. My very most favorite Imperial Dignitary. That's my favorite of the last 17 because he's just like an angry old woman. And you need more of those in Star Wars. But yeah, I got a bunch of toys and stuff at KB. And we had gone to Toys R Us in Beaumont, Texas, to the mall. And then across the street was a Toys R Us, and they had all the Remco monster figures. So for like $10, I got that little playset that came with the open playset, and then all of the monster figures. They were the glow in the dark ones. And then one of those little pocket rocker cassette things, which is, I guess, part of how I knew I was growing up, because it was a pocket rocker, so I could listen to Corey Hart.
But Viper Scout has a question for you.
Yeah.
Is this just McFarlane or Spin Master as well? I believe
I
this is
don't.
just
Does anybody really buy Spin Master? I mean,
no. Aren't they for little kids? I mean,
I don't know. I've I've got a little Wonder Woman Spin Master. She's pretty well made.
but during you asking this, Viper Scott, he released 2 new Batmans.
Yeah, McFarlane has released more Batman. As in defiance of me lifting up his, he was afraid I might buy a Spin Masters because he's sleeping on his Batman game. So we're gonna be to like 57 by the end of the night.
So I am too. I love glow in the dark.
Yeah.
There's that glow in the dark. If you collect Motu, that glow in the dark scare glow is a thing of beauty.
That was one of the last
$15.
2 figures we got. We went to the mall not long after that movie came out, which I like now, but at the time that movie was trash. But we went and we got like Clamp Champ, King Randor, the Sorceress, Mosquitor, like all of the last wave of figures, like they were all there. We got them all. Scareglow. But yeah, he was just so rad, Scareglow, like. And it was like, this is just Skeletor without a hat and clothes.
A weird memory that I have of Masters of the Universe was walking through J.C. Penney's in the furniture department with my parents, and they had what would be pretty much like a comic book rack,
Yeah.
but it had all Motu figures on it.
Interesting.
And it was just like randomly in the middle of, it was in the bedding, so where all the beds were and everything. I can visualize the purple carpet and everything. And to this day, I'm like, why was that there? Other than probably, I mean, what a way to distract kids that are going to be bothering their parents. Like, just go look at those pictures.
Well, there are a lot of J.C. Penney's stores back then had. I mean, like a lot of my toys came from.
But this wasn't in a toy section. This was just a random rack where they sold beds, because my parents were looking for, but you would walk through there and there it was.
Interesting.
It's something that will always stick out. And Lynn, I remember Evil Lynn being on it.
There you go.
So going into your teen years, like, you obviously, it sounds like you kind of got away from toys like most of us. Like I said, around 8th grade, going into 9th, I still had my G.I. Joe stuff. I know that. But I was not actively collecting it. But I had found skateboarding, and that was a whole nother story, episode. I could go on and on. So what did you turn to as you became a teenager?
Well, it was kind of twofold. And it had sort of always been there. I mean, like the first time I broke my piggy bank was so I could buy Kiss Destroyer on vinyl, because children didn't have 8-track tape players. But yeah, so music was always a big deal. And that's what my dad collected. He had just all this vinyl, so before it was cool. So there was music. Also, my uncle, my late uncle, who was the best uncle, he was really into, and my mom was too. They were into Stephen King, and like my uncle was really into horror. So like the first adult book I read was like 1980-ish. I stole The Shining from my mom's bookshelf and went out into the yard, and I didn't know most of the words, but I knew some of them. So I sort of Stephen King, horror movies. I wasn't allowed to watch Halloween or Friday the 13th or any of those kind of horror movies for a long time because they were real. They could happen. And my mom was afraid about violence on television and movies. Because, the violence is bad.
Yes, that's what's led us to where we are today.
I know, right? It was all those violent movies. Oh my God, I'm having a Clueless moment. Before we become a more peaceful society where there's no violence on television, there's no reason in taking it out of TV shows that need it for entertainment value. But yeah, so like there was horror, and then comic books happened. Like all three of those things had always sort of been there. Superpowers was a big deal because I finally got a Wonder Woman. Thanks, Migo, for overpricing your Wonder Woman and making her hard to find. But yeah, 1984, Wonder Woman Superpowers, which then had me remember all the comics without covers that I had for Wonder Woman. And then we went to, they called them head shops back then. Like you could go get album, like basically use record store, but they also had comics at the one my dad went to. And so I would go look through the back issue aisles, and I got like some Wonder Woman back issues and some Supergirl back issues. And that sort of started around 1984, which as we started moving toward that phase of maybe you're too old for toys. And then my friend Jody in 8th grade bought me a brand new Wonder Woman comic and brought it, like, because there had been some sort of comic convention or something he went to. And he brought that to school for me on Monday. And then it just took off. So between horror movies and Wonder Woman comics and music, that sort of took over. Like,
So you were still reading comics, like through high school.
Secretly.
Which is much easier to hide than toys.
Yeah,
when your friends come over. What kind of music did you gravitate to? Like,
this is vaguely embarrassing.
Do you mind me asking what year you graduated?
I graduated in 1992.
Okay.
So after Nirvana, well, it's not embarrassing. I don't know why I'm saying that. It's just like you're punk. So most of what I listened to would not, although I did one of my first, I did have the Return of the Living Dead soundtrack that I still listen to that regularly. That was my first real exposure to punk. But I listened to like Cyndi Lauper, Madonna, the Go-Go's, Lisa and the Cult Jam. All of her albums.
I love 80s music.
All of that. Like I had Bananarama.
Cruel Summer.
Cruel Summer.
When I hear Cruel Summer, I instantly think of Karate Kid.
It was a great song though. But yeah, so like it was a lot of music, scary movies. Friday the 13th is the best cinematic universe ever. Sorry, Marvel. Like I've seen your recent offerings, Marvel, and there's still like Friday the 13th Part 8, Jason Takes Manhattan is still better. Even the Eternals was better than Jason Goes to Hell, but I've had a root canal that was better than Jason Goes to Hell. So, like a really unfortunate root canal where the dude like hit something with the drill that you shouldn't hit with the drill.
No.
Woke me the fuck up. Yep. No.
So you would have been in Louisiana.
Yep.
In high school. No. Do you remember on the Saturday and Sunday, like it always seemed like there was a Friday the 13th on?
USA Up All Night, then became USA like the captain guy.
I mean, like what would be our UHF channels.
Yeah.
They always had a Friday the 13th on at like 2 p.m. on Saturday or Sunday, and a Godzilla movie almost always every week. Those horror movies were on all the time.
Our UHF channels only showed like the only horror that was on Saturday during the day was like old Hammer vampire movies, which were always weird. I never quite I don't dislike them, but I've just never been that interested in them because they're very, I don't know, like something about old musty castles and the way all the women have like boobage in a certain way that's like.
So Action Freak says Saturdays were always monster movies.
Yeah.
But I just remember like these Friday the 13th movies always not just around Halloween, but they were on all the time.
Yeah, we were also far enough out there that we, like even with our aerial antenna, like we couldn't get a lot of UHF, like so we were limited. When my dad for a while we had a satellite and that helped because we didn't even our tiny little area we were in didn't get cable for a really long time. Like we didn't have MTV at my house until like 1995. Like it happened after I was away at college. I came home one night and MTV was on. I'm like, what the fuck is happening in this house? There's MTV.
I remember my
Like,
mom.
yeah, we got it last week finally.
I remember my mom watching VH1.
Yeah, they got VH1 before they got MTV, which was fine because back then it was all like, yeah, like it was 90 whatever, and it's like they're still playing like Lisa. So I'm like, that's okay.
Yep.
But they would only play All Cried Out because it was soft rock. VH1 is the softer side of Sears.
Yep.
Yeah, so like, but yeah, music, horror movies, especially slashers. I don't know why I always preferred those, like movies about the devil, like the Amityville Horror.
The
Like
Omen, the
the
scariest movie
Omen, like
ever.
I loved the Omen, but it didn't scare me.
Oh my god, that is
Like
the first Omen. I haven't seen it in a
the
long
thing that
time.
did scare me in the first Omen was that nanny, like that really severe, like pinched face witch woman. Like, ugh. And it did creep me out when that lady was like, "It's all for you, Damien," and then she killed herself because I'm like,
She jumps. I think she jumps
yeah,
out the window.
yeah,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
like
I'm not a horror movie person.
that weirded me out. But like otherwise, like when they discovered the like dead baby skeleton thing, and they realized that Damien is literally the son of a bitch. I'm like, oh my god, this is epic. Even at like 10, I cackled. I'm like, his mom's a bitch, and my mom was like, I'm like, but no, she's a dog. It's okay to say that if it's a dog, right? And she's like, well, I guess you've got me there.
I remember using that excuse.
Well, I mean, in that case, it was what I meant. His mom was
So
literally a bitch. Like, a
so
dog.
going through high school, you
Yeah.
obviously were not collecting toys, but you would say you would consider yourself still a collector. Like you
I
were
was
still
still, I still
collecting.
had all of my stuff. I didn't give it to my brother.
Yeah.
Um,
But
I
you kind of moved on to collecting other things.
Yeah, record CDs. He was collecting turtles, so I technically it wasn't my April O'Neil figure, but I kind of acquired it, and I would sometimes play turtles with him. I miss toys. I couldn't quite call it that. I didn't quite realize it, so I would sometimes sneak in there and play with April and his sewer playset thing.
I think you said it. I think what you just said there was perfect. I mean, I remember because I kept a lot of my Jagged stuff out. I would hang it from the ceiling and stuff. That's why, like my Tomahawk, my Night Raven, I drilled screws into it like hooks so I could hang it. And I think what you just said there was perfect. Like you missed it, but you didn't really realize you missed it because every now and then you just kind of have a figure out. Or I
Yeah,
remember having this would have been in high school that
and
a
I
bunch of
still
guys spent the night at my house, and this one kid, um, he had a good night. Let's just say, he was one of those guys that thought he was really funny, but normally he wasn't. But he just had a wonderful night. He started going through all the G.I. Joe figures and naming them different things. And I remember he brought up Destro. He's doing Destro as Grace Jones.
oh
I'll
my god,
never be able to see Destro, the O-ring figure, and not think of that night of him calling calling him Grace Jones.
that would be epic though. She was amazing. I need Super 7. Are they still doing Conan, or is that also a license they've lost?
No, they have a new wave they just dropped.
They need. I think they've got what's her face from the first one, which is fine. But we need a Grace Jones figure, Super 7. Like, give the people what they want.
We'll give it time.
7-inch Grace Jones with attitude. But yeah. I did technically like when Toy Biz released like the Batman toys. That was 1989 around the Batman movie. I did have like that Wonder Woman. Um, and I had some, there was no Catwoman. I did not have Bob the Goon, God forbid. Ugh. Anyway, but I also, for whatever reason, I ended up getting the Batman the Cave playset. I think my mom maybe mixed up some boxes because my brother did get a boom box that year for Christmas, and the boxes were about. But I already had like a nice stereo. It was just like it's nice to have an extra boom box for when you want to go out in the yard and have rap battles like in Teen Witch. Um, and if you haven't seen Teen Witch and you're watching this after this is over, you have to go Google Teen Witch Top That and watch it. Because if you've never seen Top That from Teen Witch, you don't understand what it was like being white in the 80s. Anyway, Top That. Anyway.
So after you graduate, like, did you get back into collecting? Because you made comments before about, oh, thanks, this is something that I'm throwing a box and I'll open in 10 years.
Yeah, well, so
it made me laugh.
How I got, technically I was doing comic books. I got like a few figures that were in line with sort of my collecting, and that went under my mom's radar. For whatever reason, she was really sort of intent about like me growing. It literally like Peter Pan was my first favorite movie, and it was like my mom was bound and determined to like play out some sort of, you children must grow up. Wendy, you're an adult now. And ironically, my little sister that who is no longer with us, she was Wendy. And that's why we named, well, that's not why they named her that, but they let me think that they picked it because I liked the name, because my parents, overindulged me. But so yeah, I had those. But senior year, I think it was right before senior year, a bunch of us went to like one of the bigger cities to go to their mall. And because RJC Penney's and Montgomery Ward's just weren't going to cut it, we needed like cool stores like Gadzooks. I still have my vinyl shoes from Gadzooks. Like, can't stop, won't stop. But so we went and they had Dillard's. And of course, I was not going to spend money on any. And then, because, like Dillard's is expensive and for boring people. And then they had this cool, like, suede vest. It looked almost just like the vest China Phillips wore in the Hold On video by Wilson Phillips. And I just got that haircut, like where I had that wedge, like that bowl cut, but it's like I rocked that haircut for a few years. I used to have the bone structure for it at that age. And so we were in Dillard's and they were liquidating their toy section, and it was right by the shoes. And they didn't have all the shoes there were for grandmas and moms with no sense of humor. So I was not, but my friends were like, oh my God, look at these. And I'm like, I'm trying not to. And then I spied their toy department with everything like 60, 70% off. And they had like, the stuff you would expect, but most of it was gone. But there was a single Princess of Power Double Trouble carded. And it was marked down to, it was like $1.50. And she, for whatever reason, one of my favorite Princess of Power characters was Double Trouble. So I'm like, I gotta get this. Like, there's no way I can't. Mint on card, like my favorite character. She's just gonna sit here forever. Nobody else is gonna buy her. So I bought her, and they were all like, "What are you doing?" Like, because we're teenagers now. We're almost adults. We don't need those toys. Same friend who asked me that day, asked me recently, so what are you going to do with all your toys when you die, since you don't have any children? And I was like, be buried with them like an Egyptian pharaoh. I don't think she cared for the answer, but whatever. She's got 3 children who will steal all of her stuff before she dies. They're just waiting to put her in a home. But anyway, so I got Double Trouble that day. And it awoke a lot of shit. Like, I was more excited about that than I was about my suede vest. And let me tell you, I wore that suede vest more than I should have.
See, that's very interesting that you have one point, like literally one moment that kind of brought you back into
it. And it just I was not, like, I hated high school. I survived high school. I did very well where people probably didn't realize I hated it. I just hated it. I hated being there, it's like, like my first 2 or 3 years of high school, I was so awkward enough that like it was miserable because people were mean. And then my last two, like, because I went to our school was so small, it was like eighth grade was part of high school. So eighth, ninth, 10th grade, horrible. And then in like right before 11th grade, I got that haircut. Thank you, China Phillips. I can't watch your Jesus show because it's weird, but thank you for the haircut and telling me to hold on for one more day because it did go my way. I fell in with some cool kids. Um, it helped that one of them like was cheating on her boyfriend with a hot bad boy, and I basically covered for her a couple times, and that's how you get in. You got dirt on somebody, they let you in. And then I got in, and they suddenly realized, oh my God, you're mean, but in a good way. So yeah. But I wasn't. I mean, like there was a time in geometry where everyone was like, because in high school shit just we were talking about queefing, and our teacher, Mrs. Manuel, was probably not very popular in school, and she didn't even know what that was. And
I would not have known what that was.
somebody goes, Mrs. Manuel, do you queef? And she thinks that's a cool thing because the way we've been making fun of it makes it sound like it is. She goes, oh yeah, I queef all the time. And everybody loses it, obviously. And of course, she thinks we're losing it because she's just, like she's in on it, right? This is the first time I'm like, oh wait, like popularity really can be evil. And so I felt really bad because, you know, I'm not a nice person, but I'm a good person. But after class, I hung back and I'm like, Mrs. Manuel, you got a minute? So I explained to her what a queef was. And then that's when I realized, like, when somebody cries and they're an adult, you're not prepared for it. And if you're the one who caused it, even trying to be nice, you have to stay and clean up your mess. So, yeah. So I fell in with those kids, like, where we convinced the teacher to say queef, not knowing what it means. So
we had a teacher. It was my English teacher in 9th grade. Name was Mrs. Lane. And everyone always told me, they said she loves Shakespeare and she loves Mel Gibson. So if she starts talking about Mel Gibson in Hamlet, it's all over.
Right.
And people would say, like, she'll start rubbing herself, like, when she talks about Mel Gibson and, like, whatever. And I'll never forget that one day she was talking about Mel Gibson in Hamlet, and you can see her moving her hand, and it's going up and down. And then, next thing you know, her hand's down her blouse, and she's doing this. And you're sitting there, and there's, like, 4 of us at a table. And I remember, like, we're looking, and, like, we're looking at each other. And then we look around, and every single kid is watching her like, holy shit. And now, this was what was told to me about, from my friends that were older than me that had her. And you're watching this, and you're like, oh my gosh, like, these, like, they weren't lying. Like, she is rubbing her leg and then up her breast, and then she's like, she had this blouse on, so, and you're just like, she has no idea. But every single kid here that's in 9th grade, which is just brutal. And then 20 years later, I was dropping my stepdaughter off at school, and I saw her walking across.
Oh my God.
And I was like, oh my God, she's still alive?
Yeah, right? It seems like she might have had a bad, like she may not have made it through that bad year Mel Gibson had. Like I used to say, everything was good until that time Mel Gibson drank that vanilla Coke.
Okay, so
yeah.
So you said you're getting back into collecting.
So yeah, like right before senior year, I found Double Trouble, and she was just, again, I think it helped that she wasn't in the Filmation cartoon at all. So I completely got to make up her entire story. She was like the one character, technically she was my Mary Sue. Not that people accurately use Mary Sue in this day and age, but that's a conversation for another time. Um, but yeah, so there was that, and then right after I graduated in 1992, people are doing the math right now. But anyway, the big movie of that summer was Batman Returns, and fucking Catwoman is the fucking shit, and she rocks. And I had the giant poster. I tried to find the hello there sign so I could like ruin it and stick it in my window. Alas, never found it. And I'm just gonna make one. So like very soon, whenever I'm on a live stream, this behind me is gonna say hell here. Or I'll fix it so it goes out during a live stream or whatever. Gotta give the kids the fantasy. Anyway, but they had the Catwoman figure at a store. I went with was it my mom? It might have been my mom because I got Judgment. Anyway, so they had the Catwoman figure from Batman Returns, and I bought that. And I was like, this is really cool. I didn't buy any of the other figures though, but when I got her home, I'm like, she's the exact same scale as all of my superpowers. And I stole all of my brother's superpowers when I acquired mine when I was packing it all up, so I could be a high schooler now. And so I got out the Hall of Justice. I got out the Supermobile, the Batmobile. I stole all of that from my brother. Like, it's like, you don't need these anymore. You play with those turtle things. I used packing up my toys to acquire a lot of his, and that I had always coveted, but never, but yeah, so I got all of the superpowers out, and I was like, okay. And it tied into my comic books. I was like, it's okay. And then not long after that, Timothy Zahn did the first of those Star Wars books.
I remember those.
And I got that, and I read it, and I loved it. And so then I went and dug out all of my Star Wars toys. And all of those books basically, like, I then remembered my brother had like some comics that like for Star Wars Dark Empire. I think, yeah, there was the Dark Empire. So I went and dragged all of those out, and I'm like, this art is weird. Why is it all colored like this? Why does Princess Leia look terrible here? So basically, I was doing the Force Awakens before everyone else.
Was Dark Empire? Is that where you see Mara Jade?
No, Timothy Zahn is the one who did Dark Empire. Timothy Zahn did Heir of the Empire, and that's where she was.
Yes, Heir to the Empire.
Dark
yeah,
Empire
that comic meant me a lot of money.
Yeah, Dark Empire is the Dark Horse comic, where we are introduced to the concept that Emperor Palpatine has been cloning bodies so he can shift his consciousness into them. So everyone take a moment to think about it. All of you people who said we missed the legacy era of Star Wars stuff, every time you get mad about the Rise of Skywalker, I'm just going to say you missed it too hard, and that's what they took from. Anyway, back to everything else.
That movie's awful.
I liked that movie. Was it a great?
We have to end this broadcast right now.
No. Oh, whatever, Lawrence. Don't make me call you Larry.
That trilogy is awful.
And you can end the call, but I know how to find you, and I'll just like. You better go to Detroit and hide out, sir. But anyway, I mean, like, I get why people don't like it. Like, there are a lot of things I don't like. But I also don't see the reason to. The only things that like people like that I feel okay with tearing down is Moby and Lena Dunham. Otherwise, like what you like. But I mean, yeah. I mean, like, is Rise of Skywalker a great movie? God, no. Is it a good movie? Probably not. It's a fun Star Wars movie. And why is it a fun movie? Because for like 2 hours, if you just let it all go, you can just sit there and listen to the music and enjoy some Star Wars. I mean, every Star Wars movie has to go back to Tatooine anyway. So
yeah, but I can turn on Return of the Jedi and enjoy Star Wars and have all that stuff you just talked about.
Yeah, but see,
or Empire, or Star Wars, or any of the prequel.
Yeah, spoiler alert, Return of the Jedi is actually the one I watched the least.
That is my
I
favorite
don't,
one.
it's got some sequences, but I just, you know, yeah, like I just, yeah. And there are people who hate the Ewoks, and there are people who love. I like the Ewoks; they're cool.
I love
Um,
the Ewoks. I love
yeah,
when
but
that
there are
one
people who
dies
hate
and the one gets all upset about
and
it.
I used to get all judgy about that, but now I'm just like, dude, we're all gonna die. Like, just let people like what they want to like, unless it's
I know,
Moby or Lena
but
Dunham.
sometimes it's just fun to like poke the bear.
It is sometimes, yeah.
And
No, I will
I know you poke the bear.
all the time. I go on Facebook sometimes, and I will post shit that I know is not true. Like, or I'll go on and post something like Brett Favre is the best baseball player ever,
there was
and
there was
just
just I think it
walk
was a
away.
comedian that was talking about after they post something and there's an argument and he's like, there comes a point that I know that I'm wrong, but now everyone thinks that I believe it. I've been proven wrong. Now I'm just going to like keep saying it to piss you off. And I was like, that is such an awesome way to look at it. You know you've been proven wrong, but you know people are mad because you believed it. Now you're just going to continue to poke the bear.
My favorite way to poke the bear is I like to go into like or just sometimes just I do this a lot on more on Facebook than anywhere because I have a cultivated friends list there. And I know exactly whose buttons are going to be pushed because it's like really small. But I'll go on there sometimes and post like Clockwork Orange. Wow, what a boring, overrated movie. I've never been so bored in my whole entire life. How can people think this is good? And then I just step back and watch people lose their shit. It's amazing. Or like Stanley Kubrick, worst director ever. So overrated.
so
And then they just, oh my God, it's glorious. Try it sometime.
so I haven't done it lately, but on my Facebook, normally when someone dies, I do a meme of that person dying, but it's always the wrong person.
Oh,
So so when James, I think it was Sean Connery had died, I had posted one of the other James Bond had died. And people were like, that's not him. I'm like, James Bond died. This is him. So when whichever one it was died after, maybe it was Roger. I forget which one died first. But when that one died, I was able to post it and said, I was just like a year early. When uh the guy that played Willy Wonka, what's his name?
Gene Wilder?
When Gene Wyman died, I posted a picture of Willy Wonka. Um, what's his
Johnny
face?
Depp?
Johnny Depp as Willy Wonka. Rip Willy Wonka, and people started getting mad. And I'm like, no, they said Willy Wonka died, not that one. And I'll never forget. My buddy writes underneath it, I cannot believe people don't get it yet. Like they're still arguing with me, and I'm arguing that this person died or that person. Um, and
Oh, wow.
one of my favorite ones was when Kamala died from wrestling fame. Well, his name was actually Kamala Harris, who just happened to be running at the same time.
Oh my
So when
God.
I posted that, I'm like, but I'm reading
Mhm.
Kamala Harris died.
Oh
People
my
don't
God.
find that too funny. I find it hilarious.
I
I just
didn't
haven't
realize
done it
Gene
recently.
Wilder was dead. I just thought that was the internet being assholes every time because it keeps popping up every 2 years or so. I mean, honestly, in a perfect world, both Johnny Depp and Amber Heard would like disappear forever, and like I never want to hear about either of them again. So that's my one political hot take for the night. They can both go away.
I don't mind Johnny Depp.
Yeah.
He's kind of like Tom Cruise. He still does some pretty good movies. Tom
Yeah,
Cruise does a lot of good movies.
Tom Cruise does he?
Roman, stop that.
Um, Tom Cruise was I don't know. I just can't. I can't with the Scientology thing again.
Hey, you know
And
what? I'm sitting down and listen. If you're telling me you can sit through Rise of Skywalker, don't tell me you can't sit through Top Gun Maverick.
well, I've never seen either Top Gun movie, so I don't know if I could or not.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
But then again, I keep saying I haven't seen Goonies, so
I've only
uh,
seen, yeah, I went to Goonies that many. What else came out in that year? That let's look at the internet and
was that
see.
84?
Top Gun, I think, was
That was 87, I believe.
1986. So that was not the year of the Goonies,
No.
because Goonies was 85. Goonies
Okay.
never say die. What was 1986? That was the year I know I went and saw Friday the 13th Part 6, Jason Lives, a couple times that year.
They were already up to 6 then.
Yep.
Man.
They used to come out almost one every year. And they started in 1980. So yeah, but I'm just because like why not? Well, I see exactly why I didn't go see Top Gun. Howard the Duck came out in 1986, and so did Aliens, Little Shop of Horror, Short Circuit, Ferris Bueller's Day Off, and
Short
Witchboard.
Circuit is
That was
that
my
is an
entire.
underrated
That was
movie.
my whole last year. And then One Crazy Summer came out that year. I went
Oh,
and
I
saw
love
that
One
like
Crazy
3
Summer.
times. Pretty in Pink. So yeah, I'm sorry, Tom Cruise. I had more important things.
Yeah, but since 1987, that's how many years have passed? But I know. Like I said, I've never seen Indiana Jones. It comes on. I just have no interest
Yeah,
to
so
watch
there you
it.
go. I mean,
But see, like
I
to
went
me,
saw, and then Iron Eagle came out. I saw Iron Eagle. I was more about Iron Eagle than Top Gun.
I love Iron Eagle.
So yeah.
That is a realistic movie.
Ooh, Soul Man with C. Thomas Howell came out in '86. Not our best moment, guys. Anyway, yeah. So I didn't probably see Top Gun originally because like I had a really busy movie year. Um, but over time, it's just become a thing where it's like people get really invested in the fact that everyone has seen it, and when you haven't, people get really upset. It's like whenever I say, well, I've only seen the part of Titanic where Leonardo DiCaprio freezes to death. Yes, I did say what I said on purpose. DiCaprio. Anyway, but yeah, I've only seen the part because that's the only interesting part. The rest of it, who cares? Like,
No, I love when the people fell and then the boat cracks in half.
oh, I had to like forwarding it like I would forward it, but I would get to there because I wanted the full intake of the oh my god, we must save you from the ship, Rose. And then she's like, oh my god, there's not enough room up here for you at all. I can't go to America with you, you little dirty rat peasant. I've got a diamond. Like I
Now,
love that.
no,
I
Matt says Short Circuit 2 is better.
I agree actually.
Do you guys remember the movie Runaway with Tom Selleck?
Yeah, I was kind of
Robotic little spiders. My mom loved Tom Selleck. So maybe it was that stash. I don't
my
know.
grandmother also enjoyed him, and I think it was for sure this.
And then he has a Detroit hat on because he's not really. I don't remember if he's born here and then moved away, or he was born somewhere and moved here. I forget exactly what it was, but he always had the Detroit hat on. And here in Detroit, they don't do a lot of movies that are based here.
Well, what about the cinematic masterpiece that's 8 Miles? Did you not lose yourself in that moment, Lawrence?
So a story about that. I was in Dallas for training, and it was shortly after 8 Mile had come out, and I was sitting there at lunch with 2 other guys, and this guy from New Jersey, I think. He goes, "What is 8 Mile anyway?" And I was like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "Well, what is 8 Mile?" I'm like, "It's a road," and he's like, "That makes no sense." I'm like, "Oh my god!" Like, people, if you're not from like Detroit, you don't understand. So 8 Mile is in the Detroit area. Our roads would go by miles.
Yeah.
18 mile, 18. Well, 8 Mile is what separates Detroit from the suburbs. Now, he did not live in Detroit. He lived right in Warren, from what I understand, in a bad area. I mean, it's not much better
According
than
to the movie, it was a trailer park with the mom who looked like Kim Basinger.
Yeah.
How do you say her? Basinger?
Basinger.
Basinger? I follow their
Um,
kid on
so
TikTok.
he grew up in a poor area. My daughter went to school with it. Well, went to the same school as his daughter, but she was like a grade or two in front of my daughter. Um, but what people don't realize is Kid Rock. He grew up in Romeo, which
Yeah.
is roughly 25 miles away from Detroit, in a very nice area. So when Kid Rock tries to preach being Detroit and everything, um, I kind of laugh about it
Wasn't it
because
possible that the first time he got Hep C was in Detroit? I mean, it seems likely. Maybe that's what it's all about.
Kid Rock.
Yeah.
Oh, there's a good chance because
Yeah.
his yodeling in the valley and stuff. And I remember, see, I don't see. Brick says, what? Oh man, I was waiting for Lawrence to mention spaghetti. Listen, I've never seen 8 Mile. I live
Okay, I
close.
seen it. The dude who's like, guess what was on the TV, Lawrence? Whenever that woman's eye was looking at me in the kitchen, we were watching. It was one of his favorite movies. Because you know how white guys are about white guy rappers, even though they themselves can't rap, they think, oh, if Eminem can do it. We had to see that movie 3 times at the theater.
See, I mean, growing up here, I know what 8 Mile is.
Yeah.
I don't care about rap.
Oh, I know what 8 Mile is because
So
Lawrence,
if
we were at an Applebee's. I mean, just right there, we were at an Applebee's. It should be the end of the horror story, but it's not. We were at an Applebee's. And I was having a Chinese chicken salad, which, according to the old lady in the seat next to me, is not as good as it used to be. And he was explaining to me what 8 Mile was. And I'm like, there is not enough margarita in this margarita glass to get me through this moment. So, yeah. Anyway, but yeah, I bet people watching don't know what 8 Mile is. So I just know as I glaze over, I've gone back in time.
What is truly interesting, and this is what I explained. So when you get down to Jefferson High or Jefferson, it's right on the lake. Jefferson in the shores, St. Clair Shores, Grosse Pointe, all these, they're $2, $3, $4, $5 million homes, $10 million homes right on the water. And you're driving down, and it's beautiful. And you leave, and it's within 300 feet, you go into the ghetto. It's like there is a magical border that people will not pass. It is crazy because when I tell people this, I'm like, now it has started to get a little bit better.
Yeah.
But it is amazing. You have these $1 million homes where you have the Ford and the GM executives. All these executives live, and where these people, I don't know how they make so much money. They're right on the water, or they're actually right across because no one's on the water. These homes are huge. But there was something that I did not know about this, is that back in the 50s or 60s, they actually built a wall that is still there that cuts at that point there's no 8 Mile because it's so they just built a wall that would divide Detroit from the suburbs, and it still sits there. It's like a 6-foot high wall. There's like this. It was this huge documentary on it, and if you drive through and you look, you'll see it. It's very interesting. That's how they tried to keep the blacks out of these richer areas. They built a wall because they couldn't walk around the wall, I guess. And it still sits there. I had no idea about it at all. So,
well, that's how we know David Hasselhoff has never done a concert in your town, because that wall. I'm going down the second David starts singing.
We have good hamburgers. He might come here.
Oh, I bet. Like, it's not like he's doing anything. I mean, he's at home drinking and eating hamburgers, but otherwise, it's not like anyone's hiring the Haas. Wait, he's like, I know it's the Hoff, but I like calling him the Haas because I know, even though I'll never meet him, he would hate that. So, some people are just a little uppity. You got to, it's like, yeah.
But you know what? The thing, like, when you watch Dodgeball, you have seen Dodgeball, right?
Oh, the movie, not the sport, because I do
the movie. I don't care about the sport.
Lively dodgeball game. Nothing like watching a kid get smacked in the face with the rubber ball.
He's learned to take himself as the kind of joke that he is. I've even heard him talk where he's like, "Listen, I am a trained classical singer, and if you would have told me that what I am known for is running around in red shorts without my shirt on, and knowing I'm by far not the best in shape of all the people, I would have said you're full of it." So he does kind of get the joke now.
That's good.
Um,
Oh,
so
really quickly to your earlier point, according to the Wikipedia, Thomas William Selleck is an American actor, and he was born January 29th, 1945, in Detroit, Michigan.
okay,
So he's from Detroit.
yeah.
So
So I couldn't remember if he was born here and then he moved away. I think pretty quickly.
I mean, it makes sense, but I do wish he would get off my television every morning telling me he's not trying to steal old people's houses.
Oh,
And I'm pretty sure he
oh.
is.
Is he still? I said I watched Blue Bloods. As a matter of fact, I had to catch up on Blue Bloods because I haven't watched it, and I won't be able to watch it this week either because I'll be on tomorrow night with Payne. So,
Oh, yeah, that's right. I'll have to tune in and watch that. I'll be at my desk coloring. I got to get those videos made.
all right.
But
So I want to get in. So as an adult, and you're collecting, what do you mind me asking? What you do in your career that what allows you to have the funds to collect? Because you tend to buy a lot of stuff.
I do. It's weird. Well, there are two things. One, I'm incredibly reckless with money. And thank you, bipolar mom and grandparents. But also, I work in insurance billing. Um, so I work for like a private company that we do billing for clinics. So I spend my day yelling at insurance companies when they don't pay. And it pays, it doesn't, like I'm not rolling in it. I'm not a Rockefeller, but I do all right. I can make my expenses and then spend too much on, there are months where I probably spend too much. Like, I mean, during the pandemic, it was just like, I kind of just didn't care because we didn't know what was going to happen. So I just kind of spent. Um, and I had stocked up like in the beginning. I went and bought like a giant sack of rice and giant like like a bunch of canned goods because I'm like food shortages are gonna happen. And then so we had to eat all of that rice and all of that beans. So I'm like, if all this rice and all of these beans are happening, I'm gonna buy some toys so I can at least as I plug my nose have something interesting to look at. But yeah, I mean, there are months where it's like I have to stop myself. Like, yeah, let's just wait. Um, so I buy a lot. I buy more than I should. And yeah, we're trying to save to buy a place so that we'll have something when we're old, someplace to put all of these collectibles. Because I have some stuff in storage, but I also have. I mean, I still have a bunch of my original childhood stuff. The stuff I brought with me and that I didn't leave in storage in Louisiana, I still have. I have like all of my Wonder Woman comics going back to like 1952, I think is my oldest issue. Through the new 52, thanks TC, killed my love of comics. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, so yeah, insurance billing. And I spend more than I should. At times it's decadent, but also I don't have kids. I've got the boyfriend who makes his own money, and we've got two cats, probably a third one soon. Um, so I've got cats, I've got a boyfriend.
So how does that work? I mean, how is he supportive in your? Because I don't have a significant other
Yeah,
anymore, so I don't have to justify what I as long as my bills are paid, roof is paid, the kids have
right.
what they need, food's on the table, child support is paid. I don't have a choice; just comes out. Not that I wouldn't pay it, but you know. Um, so how is that? Is he a collector? Does he have hobbies like that?
Technically, he's not like a collector. He's more of like he plays a lot of video games. So he's way more of a gamer. He's got his
Okay.
PlayStation. He's got a setup. So he spends his money on that. But we also have our separate money, so we don't just put everything into
So
one.
if he's a gamer,
Yeah.
that explains probably a lot of the reasons why you're able to be in so many streams. He's
Yeah.
probably
Well, he works nights,
oh
and so I
okay.
mean, right now he's still asleep because like well today is his second day off, but yeah, so he works overnight. And so he leaves for work at like 9:30, 10 o'clock every night
Okay.
and gets home at like 7:30, 8 in the morning. And then, which is about the time I'm getting up for work. And then he's in bed by noon, which I work from home mostly. So like at 9, I start work. And I'm at a computer almost all day. And then like, what time is it? It's almost 9 p.m. our time. So he's probably, I think I hear him getting up right now, which is fine. He knows that this is happening. So, but if you hear wild flatulence in the background, that might be him because he did just wake up. But yeah, so we have, yeah, there aren't really shared expenses. We just have things we're each responsible for. And then whatever we do with our own money is our business, as long as it doesn't somehow, like if the light bill didn't get paid because I bought too many toys, then that would be a problem.
Yeah.
But since that doesn't happen, it's not an issue. And I have been in relationships in the past where it was. But really early on, when I was trying to justify a purchase, he just basically said, "Are all of your bills paid?" And I'm like, "Well, yeah." He's like, "Well, girl, it's none of my business what you do with your money." So I'm like, "Okay, this is cool." Because dude I moved up here with like was just, "Oh, you're spending money on that?" And yeah, and it's like I'm like, "Yes, and I'm also spending money because you have no job so that you have a place to live and you can go back to college to get a degree you'll never use." Literally never use that one. Um, so like one of my I won't call him a boyfriend because like we technically never really dated, but we were like involved. It was complicated because he was engaged to my best friend, and we all lived in the same house. But anyway, it's a story for not a stream.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
he
I
and
might
I
have
were
to have
like, he and I were both like we both had the same day off because we all worked together. Oh, your 20s. What a wonderful time. But we would on our day off, we would like hit this, we would go to the mall, we would go to all three of the Toys R Us that were close to us. One of them was not, we'd hit all the Walmarts. We collected we customized, and that's how it started. It just, things kind of get complicated when you have a lot of things in common with one person, but not the other.
hmm
And he and I just had a lot of in common. We were spending all this time together. We would be up till 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning, customizing. He was doing his, I was doing mine, and it just, so that one was cool. When that all blew up, the thing I missed the most was like the friend part of it. But otherwise, like he is sort of the guy I'm dating now that I've been dating for like 7 years. It'll be 7 years next month. As the first one, it just hasn't bothered. Like he's not weirded out by it, or it doesn't annoy him, or he doesn't care that half of this apartment looks like a toy store, or that a bunch of our regularly the closets are that there's a bunch of boxes in the bedroom that I've full of unopened things that I've decorated. Or if he does, he just keeps it to himself. Which is, hey, as long as it doesn't bother him enough to say anything. But eventually, when we get her place, it won't be quite the issue. And there are things that I've held back from buying because it's like I just don't have stuff that's really for my utmost personal collection that are bigger. I just haven't purchased. other than like Eternia, I don't have any. Snake Mountain will be my next big item, and then after that, it'll be Eternia when that arrives. But otherwise, it's just mostly figures, and then I mean, Origins is my only all-in toy line anyway, so that's the only one where it's really an issue. I trade so,
Cobra Commander. He sounds great. What's his number?
I'm not very good at sharing, as some of the stories of childhood with my brother have indicated. So Cobra Commander, no, sorry.
So
This is why polyamory and non-monogamy wasn't a good fit for me, because I don't share.
so starting to wrap this up here.
Yeah.
For social media, what are you looking to do? So can I show your Instagram?
Yeah, for sure. That one is open to the public now. It used to not be. I went and sort of scrubbed stuff from it. But you know, in the beginning, my usage on Instagram was different, so it has evolved. And so yeah, let's get to that part of it. So Instagram right now is mostly it sounds weird to say because I used to be a really judgmental sea cow about it, but I'm sort of one of those weird adult coloring people. Colorist is what they're calling it. So I've been coloring a bunch of different stuff. That's mostly what's on my feed right now. And
that is all that's on your feed. But I find it very interesting because, I mean, you take a lot of time.
Yeah.
With the stuff that you are doing, and some of it is kind of creepy.
Well, the creepy stuff you're looking at is, I don't know if it's counts as a collab or if it's whatever, because I'm sort of new to that. But there's a small independent publisher that has a horror coloring book they just released, and they had reached out to me and said, "Can we send you a few free pages? And if you like them and color them." So they sent me a few free pages, and it wasn't even about whether I like it or not. It was that I looked at them and I'm like, there are some things I could do with them that would like this. It was fun, like, because I sat there and I figuring out the skin tone and the eyes and the hair, like, so it was, for me, it was challenging because there's whatever monster, either she's a monster or she's been overtaken or whatever. But it was just cool because like I got to do that dirty blonde hair that my mom would have hated. And work with the skin tone and the eyes, like there was just
it's very interesting.
So yeah, and then I've got Kirby Rosanis. His books are really good. Yeah, so
this will show you what a sweet boyfriend she has.
Yeah, the day after Mother's Day, the roses were on sale.
The man friend.
And they're like, those are I know a lot of people are shitty about yellow roses, but I love them for whatever reason. So those are the colors of roses I like. So he put a bouquet together from the Mother's Day sale items, which is exactly what, because they're going to die anyway. So like, I mean, they're already dead. It's like, how long are they going to last? Don't spend too much
they're already dead.
And we've got 2 cats. So it's like, there is extra finagling to like, get them to the point where they're dying naturally, and it's not like in the night through cat murder. But yeah, so it's mostly these days that coloring, when I launch sort of my YouTube channel, which will have like some time-lapse coloring stuff and action figure custom, some of that will be. Every so often I'll throw up one of my SAS Vault things.
Like this was when like I really had started to pay attention to a lot of the things that you talk about buying, and I wanted to quickly touch on it feels like you really do collect the female characters.
Yeah, like that just, Dungeons and Dragons, like it's sad that those figures have the quality issues they do, but as a kid I wanted those figures. Like I wanted toys of Diana and what's the other one? Yeah, there was like, she had red hair. Like And as a kid with red hair, like there aren't a lot of before the Little Mermaid, there weren't a lot of us in media unless we were hideous witches, which sometimes, I am an everlasting bog witch. So
And what is that? So I see that up here. The bog witch. What is that?
I don't like there was about 2 or 3 years ago, there was somebody making fun of like all the multi-level marketing boss babes. And they had went and taken like one of those flyers and they just put a picture of like an old witch. And they were like, talk to me if you want to cast spells and turn people into toads. Ask me about being a bog witch. And so I just took that and then, mum read Ever Living. So I was like, why not just, you need something ridiculous for your profile on social media. So I was like, Everlasting Bog Witch, let's go with it. It used to be like Haughty Harridan or something like that.
And then your YouTube channel, you had mentioned to me about that you're gonna be
Yeah. Yeah, I'll be launching that. Retro Toy Princess. It's going to be coloring pages from old coloring books and not quite time lapse, but sped up because it would take 3 to 4 hours to actually, if I did it in real time, but it's sped up to like 15 to 16 minutes. And it will be like the first few are Masters of the Universe. There's some Return of the Jedi because it's the 40th year. And then Princess of Power. I'm going to do an entire She-Ra coloring book from page 1 to the end. I'm going to do my custom action figures. And I've got a few retrospects that I'm going to do. I'm going to do some figure reviews. Like right now, I'm filming a Evelyn Masterverse thing, which has all 3 of the Evelyn figures from Masterverse.
okay.
And I'm just going to compare them and like line them up. It's not going to be fancy or anything, but it's just, I was looking and nobody else had done it. And I'm doing a few Evelyn coloring pages that will be the first few videos that go up. And I was like, well, why not do that as well? Like, it's just basically going to be like my toy channel, which is like the stuff that interests me right now and the stuff I'm collecting and doing. So it's not going to be like, I guess, focused, and it's going to be not for everyone, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
Not everyone's going to want to watch pages get colored or whatever. Yeah, some people will dig the custom figure stuff, some won't, but it's not really for that so much as it's just, there's all this creativity that I'm doing that revolves around toys, and it's just like, this is a way to put that somewhere. And
it's nice to be able to share with people because I hear a lot of people talk about the same thing. It's like, listen, I don't have a person within driving distance of one tank that, I take that back because I guess I get my buddy that 3D prints, but you know what I mean.
right.
There's not that many people that want to talk toys.
Yeah, right.
But here's this huge audience that we have.
Yeah, exactly. Like,
and again, this is different because it's like I can talk with people about skateboarding, but it's not. Yeah, you can collect toys with people from Texas all the way to Australia, but like I can't skateboard. Like I can't. It's not the same.
Yeah, it's
There's
not.
no camaraderie. And this is completely different because you really do see that there's so many people, and you really do see there's so many females. Now, there's no females around me for some reason. I can't find a female that is into toy collecting that would think I'm interesting anywhere near me.
You're in a tough demographic area, so.
Right? But yeah. So, but I do want to ask before we call it a night. Now, you mentioned Strawberry Shortcake a couple times.
Yeah.
Have you picked up any of or pre-ordered in the Boss Fight Studio stuff?
I have not, and it's I go once or twice a week and look at them and tell myself, well, just order them, but I also need to actually see them. And because what they've got there is a digital render, And those digital renders are, what's a nice way to say? Sometimes digital renders look like ass, but the actual toy does not. And it just,
Sometimes vice versa.
yeah, right. And so I want to see what they actually look like, because they are $40 each, and if I'm going to spend $40 on strawberry shortcake, I can actually get vintage toys. That the cat's going crazy back there. It's red laser time. So, but yes, I could get a vintage strawberry shortcake for almost the same price that has the nostalgic value and will complete part of my collection. So until I see those and what they look like, I'm sort of holding back.
I know. So I know I was just notified that the Sorzork Warriors from Boss Fight Studios will be in soon, which probably means they'll be charged by
Yeah,
the time I wake up tomorrow. But I know Matthew can speak for it. Most of the people will say Boss Fight Studio makes some really, really good stuff. And I know when I was watching it, like they're talking about like how they have the sense fused into it.
yeah. Like I am so
I'm interested.
I am
Just in
so
general.
almost there. I don't know. Because it's such a specific. Oh my God, all the S's. Um, it's such a specific aesthetic that like it can. I mean, like the cartoon that they did like in the early 2000s was just ugh. And it was because they tried to take the aesthetic and change it. And I just every time I'm looking at them right now, every time I look at, because I've got like 3,000 tabs open, but I'm looking at what I go to, not necessarily, but regularly go to, and like, should I? And then I'm like, no, let's hold back, because I'm gonna want all of them. Everything from like in the Kinder Glory age where it's like collect them all. I still have to collect them all.
Well, I can say I felt the same way with the Valaverse because I was really
Yeah,
getting. That's when I was really getting into the 6-inch toys, and I was kind of moving away from just trying to complete my O-rings. And my buddy, he's the one who lent them, and that's why I reviewed them all because I didn't want to spend $32.
yeah,
Now I look at $32 or $35 for a figure, and it's like, you know what? That's actually a decent price for a figure you don't know, considering I spent $100 on a Mezco.
right.
But again, you start doing the research, and it is one of those things. Like it feels to me like if you go down that line, you're going to be buying all of them.
Yeah, exactly. And
If you find out one's good, then you're going to be like, well, this one's got to be good. And like I said, everything that I hear is Boss Fight Studio. I have one 4-inch figure, and I think it's a really nice Zorro figure.
yeah,
But and I'm waiting on those Sorzork figures. And again, I got 5 of them on pre-order. And I'm starting to go, why? I don't need more stuff, but
yeah. I again, like, I'm that close to like just doing it, but at the same time, I'm like, let's just somebody will review them, and not that for me, reviews don't necessarily help me decide, but seeing somebody actually with the toy sometimes does. I mean, there have been a few people, and there are a lot of people. I only watch reviews for people that I trust. So I watch your reviews. I watch Toy Habits. I mean, it's not going to be a surprise to people who've seen me in comment sections, and like Bad Life and Pixel Dan. Because I trust, like, even though everyone wants to talk about what a shill Pixel Dan is, when Pixel Dan does not like a toy, you can tell. He gets that mother's disappointed voice where he's like, here are the pros of this, and here's what I didn't like. It's just like the good mom in the neighborhood when she let you know how disappointed she was in you. She'd be like, well, it was really nice of you to do this, but when you did this, it wasn't great. And that's what I like about him is like, he's very, when he does, and every time he's such a shill, it's like, No, what he is honest, but he's polite about it in a way that we're not used to people being polite.
Yeah, I mean, again, like I don't try and influence anyone when I
Yeah,
do the reviews one way or another, but I'm going to be honest with you and tell you what I don't like. And again, what I
yeah.
might not like, you may like, and you might like something that I don't like.
Well, and it's even with Geek Dad Life when people were doing, oh, what a show. It's like, really, did you watch any of the Super 7 Turtle videos that he did? Like, Jay was not happy with those. Like, you know,
Yeah,
I cherry picked. I mean, like, I'm only going to get April figures for Turtles anyway, but like, I was watching him like because I thought because my brother, like he was Turtles. I had thought about maybe picking up a few for him. I may still because they're super cheap now. They're all go on sale. But but I was like maybe not because my brother is not really. My mom, ironically, toward the end of her life, got to a point where she was always buying me toys and sending them to me, like, and tried to pretend that she had just been cool with it the whole time because moms. Um, But she would buy my brother toys and he would get annoyed. Like, I'm an adult now. So, yeah.
and
So
I think
I almost, but then I'm like, no. And then I'm like, even though they're cheap, whatever. So,
Brick brings up a really good point. Like seeing reviews
yeah,
helps me for sure, especially when I'm getting into random third party stuff. I also like seeing how they scale with other figures.
I'm
And
big on scale.
and one of the things that you find out, like I don't like when I do my reviews, probably because they take like 3 hours to get through them.
Right?
I very rarely like compare them size wise. I did
Yeah.
kind of early, and then I realized like I'm using my iPhone to do it.
Yeah.
Like I can take a Super 7 reaction figure and put it up to a Super 7, Ultimate. It's like in the camera, I'm looking at like they look like they're the exact same height. Why can I never?
Yeah.
Um, but there are specific reviewers that will go like through each and every single one of them. They have the perfect height, so you can watch that stuff. And I think you really do get a sense. You get to know which reviewers you tend to trust. Just that are going to be honest with you. That they're not
I,
going to try and push something.
I just
Um,
realized I actually do have the Spin Master. It's not a Batman. I picked this up on Amazon, Spin Masters. Um, and she's going to end up getting customed elsewhere. But she doesn't necessarily scale with anything I expected her to. I just couldn't find any reviews. So before she gets sliced and diced, I'm gonna make a video where I compare that, and that's something with the custom stuff I do that I am gonna because I expect a lot of people who customize will end up watching my stuff because I'm doing a lot of customs. So I want to do that so that people know like here are some things that will work because you can not always, even when it's the same scale, like if the heads are little tiny pinheads, you can't really move those across lines. As these like Marvel Legends had work, female figures work with Origins bucks, but the male heads don't work with Origins very well because they're tiny.
oh, okay. Yeah, I don't understand. Marvel is awful with the different height
Yeah,
pegs. Like you would think they'd all be the same, but even the GI Joes are different from like figure to figure. It's
yeah.
it's awful.
Well, it's
Um,
like I got Scarlet thinking one of the Scarlet classified, thinking I would be able to use it with Origins, and for whatever reason, the head is just slightly off in a way that I can't make. There are ways, like with Masterverse, I've got a few heads that I switch back and forth where I can make them work with a little, and depending on how I accessorize them, but like for classified GI Joe Black Series, even though they should work, they don't always. It's
nope.
which is something for those of us who do customize. It's really hard to track because a lot of reviews don't think. Which what like I get it. It's like not everyone buys a figure like specifically to destroy it to make something else. So I get that. We're a niche. We're a very niche demo.
What's actually kind of funny about that is I had taken a picture of the new board that I set up to skate, and I had the two figures that I had just gotten in, and I just looked at it and it was like, not many people spend 50 to 60, $70 on something knowing they're going out just to destroy it.
No.
And I've taken a $70 skateboard and skated it for an hour, and it snapped in half. So, but anyway, let's wrap it up. It is getting kind of late. I want to say thank you very much for being the first guest.
Thanks for asking.
I definitely feel like you were able to keep people engaged.
I hope nobody fell asleep. They would have missed some of those.
Hold on, buddy. I'm gonna let you out 1 second. Yeah, like I said, I've seen you and I've seen how you engage in. So I definitely wanted to get someone on that. We've all seen boring. We've all seen boring.
Oh yes, we have
interviews, whatever it is, and you can tell that it's just.
I personally sometimes enjoy watching that. I like when the host in those situations realize it's going to be a boring interview and they have that "oh fuck, this is going to be bad" moment, but there's no way to just get out of it.
Yes, there's no eject cord. That's what I play.
And you just have to, So I figured it would be okay.
So before I take off, tell everyone where they can find you.
You can find me on Instagram at Allison of Troy, and there is an underscore between Allison and of, and between of and Troy. And I am really quickly in the chat. If it's okay, Lawrence, I'm going to drop the link to my YouTube.
Yes.
And keeping in mind, I'm dropping the link, but all that's up right now is my intro. But in the next 2 to 3 weeks, stuff will start popping up. So if you subscribe, some stuff will show up, and check it out. Oh, yeah, it's definitely, there it is. Okay. I think.
Is it popping up?
It's popping up on my side, but now I can't find the chat.
I'm trying to look through here.
All right. Oh wait, there it is. I think that's it. Is that? Huzzah!
What I am going to do is I'm going to drop it in the description.
Okay. It is in the chat. I just dropped it in chat, and that'll take you to my intro for those who are curious. And like I said, videos will be up in a few weeks. Coloring, custom figures. I've got an Evelyn retrospect I'm working on. So there'll be stuff. And it's just different. We will eventually be doing live streams, Lawrence, that you'll be on. At least one of them, where we color and talk. So.
Okay, Matthew says you might need to send it to him.
Okay.
Or to me.
Oh, that's right. Well, thank you, YouTube, for having cool moderation stuff. So
it's weird because it's not even like, I don't know. I can't do anything on the stupid tablet.
I just sent it to you in the behind the scenes private chat.
Yeah.
There you go. So yeah.
Oh yeah, wait a minute. That's right. We have a private chat.
Yeah, right? Like magic and stuff.
I never use a private chat because I only have Matthew on.
Right. Well, we all know Matthew is on top of this stuff, so.
Yeah, I got to figure out how to change a few things. And now I lost my chat.
Oh, no.
Here we go. Paste. And there you go. Maybe. There we go.
What?
Oh, okay. So yeah, I didn't realize that we had it. All right, buddy. I'm gonna let you out 1 second. All right. So anyway, we're gonna wrap it up. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thanks, Lawrence. This was a great time.
If you're not following Allison on Instagram and obviously on YouTube, get over there. Do it. You won't. She's fun.
Yeah, just heads up, the first few videos, I haven't found my sass voice yet for the actual videos because it's weird recording in a vacuum. But it's happening. So it'll be dry and boring a little bit. So I apologize.
All right, everyone, have a wonderful night, and I will see you guys tomorrow on Payne's Toy Samples at 9:35. Take care, guys.
Night.